All right, thank you everyone for joining us this late at this late hour. Mike Caruso, VP with the St. Louis Blues, and we have our president of hockey operations, Doug Armstrong, on here, and he is ready to go. So, first question, go ahead.
Doug, how quickly did this come about?
Well, when the free agency started, we only actually called three people today that we felt, made an impression, could make an impression on our team. And Torey was one. And so it started right at about 11:15. The calls went out. They went in. I had a conversation with them just to introduce myself, talk about the organization, asked him and his agent that if we were in serious consideration, I'd like him to talk to the coach. That call then happened, and then it just started to pick up steam after that he felt we were a good fit for him, and then we went to work on the contract.
And by that point, had you already moved on from thoughts of re-signing Petrangelo?
No, and you never know what happens in the future. We have to get very creative, but Alex has been a great part of this franchise, and you never know what happens in the future. So what we were trying to do is knock things off as they came, and this one came first.
How close did you guys coming to, I guess, landing Petrangelo again, if that was an option earlier this morning?
We didn't talk this morning. We had some really good conversations in the last evening, and we just couldn't get anything done. And so he was going to hit the market, and I said, keep us in the loop. And I still hope he does keep us in the loop.
Army, obviously you guys are a puck possession team, but Krug is not typical of a Blues defenseman at 5'9", 186. How does he change you guys stylistically?
Well, he's not tall, obviously, but he is thick, and he plays above his size. But his quickness is very important for us. He gets back, retrieves pucks, makes an excellent first pass out of the zone. I talked to some players in our group today about how he was to play against. They said he's very elusive on the forecheck, very hard to get at. Then we know the player, we know what he can do in a power play. So I think when you have players like Scandella and Bortuzzo and Branco with great size, Mikla's got great size. You're allowed to input different players, and we have Falker and Dunner still and Gunny, so we have a really good group back there now, and just a different element of a player that is 29 years old, so he's right in that age group of the guys that are competing to try and win right now, and I think he's going to fit in very well.
Doug, just to hear you clearly, are you saying that Petrangelo could still be a possibility? And if so, how do you make the cap work?
Well, you'd have to get creative, but I never say never on something like that. And as I said, the likelihood isn't great. But if I ever got the call that he wanted to see if we could make it work, I'd certainly put pen to paper and see if there was a way we could do it.
Doug, when you think back to the 2019 Stanley Cup Final, you probably were not a fan of Torey Krug at that point in time.
I respected him. I thought, I thought that was a pretty good hit he laid on Thomas, maybe a little bit high, a little bit late. But now I'm hoping that that's a legal hit for the rest of his career.
Hey, Doug, is that a good way to describe him? He's the kind of guy that opponents chafe at, but guys like to have Torey Krug on their team.
Yeah, again, like he's not. He's a competitor. He's a strong competitive player in the areas that he can be good at. Obviously, at his size, he has to defend with his head, with his stick, with his quickness. But I'm not saying he mixes it up, or he plays to his strengths, which are his hockey smarts, his quickness, and his quick stick. But he's not a passive player by any stretch.
You mentioned his prowess on the power play, Army, and Falk has that great history too. It seems like you have the potential with 2-point guys like that to have a lot of things happen on the power play.
Yeah, I talked to Craig about that today on currently with Petro as an unrestricted free agent. This gives us a player that can come in and is quarterback to top power play in the NHL. I would like to see Branco take a bigger role in that also. He's got one of the hardest shots in the league. Vince Dunn is evolving on that also. So I think we do have some really good options on the power play. But certainly, I think Krug is averaging 50 points a year over the last four or 5 years. So he's a legitimate player that needs that ice time because he's earned it.
Doug, with Torey being a left shot, do you believe that this gives you more balance in your top four and you don't have to be concerned anymore with moving a righty over there?
Yeah, I think it is back to what we've had in the past as far as righty-lefty. Craig and I talked a little bit about how we could use them and where Torey could play. And Torey and I had that conversation also. Craig said, potentially when we're playing McDavid or McKinnon down the middle, he could always go with Petrangelo and Scandella. Other times he can go with Torey and Petrangelo, and then Scandella and Falker. So we do have some options. Dunner can slide in there also. So, but having righty lefties, it's something that we've tried to have over a number of years here. Last year, we 3 of our top 4 were righties, and it made it a little bit difficult. But this certainly has a more normal influence to what we're used to.
Doug, this is the second time, of course, that you haven't re-signed an active captain. Does it also just show the business of hockey, and you always have to be thinking about the coming years and not the past?
Yeah, well, trust me, we tried. Alex, we tried to sign him. I want to give our ownership group a ton of credit. Going to the maximum number of years available. The contract, I think, is well documented that was out there, that was offered. We used every tool under the CBA to ensure that we could get something done. It just didn't work out. And there's no good or bad person in this. It's just the business side of it. And Alex is a great guy, and we had a great conversation last night. And as I said, I don't close any doors yet. But I was very impressed when you're in a pandemic, when you're talking about starting next season in January, when you're not sure if you're going to have fans here. Our ownership group never blinked that way. They wanted to continue to play with the big boys at the cap, and they want to do that moving forward. So I tip my cap to our ownership group for not wavering in a time where it would have been easy to waver.
If this is Petrangelo's final year as a Blue, how would you best describe his career?
Historic. I mean, you came in here a 4th overall draft pick. I thought the organization did a great job giving him a small taste for 2 years and sending him back to junior, allowing him to dominate at the World Junior Championship. Came in here and then has been a stalwart player for us, for this team for a number of years. A huge part of a championship caliber team. Put in a very difficult situation to replace a good friend in David Backes wearing the C. Those were some tumultuous times. That was like the end of an era, if you recall, with Brower leaving and David leaving, and we were sort of transferring into a new leadership group, and Alex had to take that on his shoulders, and I thought he did a great job. We had some coaching changes during that time, and Alex was always front and center to myself and our coaches that we knew we could trust him to deliver the message that needed to be delivered. And so if I had to describe him, I would say he's going to go down so far as one of the best Blues ever. And as I said, you never know what happens in the future.
Doug, I know you've touched on the contract situation with Alex a couple of times, but just a simple question. Why don't you think it could come together? Why don't you think to this point you haven't been able to find a match?
JR, that's a good question. I think, I look back on it. I'm not really sure why. I was hoping to get something done. He has great representation from Newport Sports. We talked a lot. We exchanged offers during the season, during the pandemic, multiple offers post-pandemic. We couldn't find something that made everyone comfortable. And that's, it's not the first time or won't be the last time this happens in the NHL. You just wish it didn't happen because, of the respect and the desire we had to keep Alex here. But with that being said, now we have Torey Krug here, and I know there's a lot of excitement in our group again to have a fresh body in here, a fresh face, someone that has that same hunger to win as they have.
Doug, go ahead.
Doug, you spent a lot of money today. Does Vince Dunn still fit into your plans?
Yeah, he's just a 23-year-old player. So yeah, there's an ability for him to come in here and poke and prod and push for ice time. It's I think that's part of being what we hope to be a very competitive team, is that ice time is not given, it's earned, and he understands that. And I got a lot of faith in Vince that he's going to put the work in this fall to be ready when we do start to play.
Hey, Doug, what's your communication been with Ryan O'Reilly in regards to leadership going forward?
It would be Ryan as part of a group of players I talk to. We have some players rehabbing right now at the arena out at Centene that I can talk to. I talked to Braden Shen a little bit. I've talked to Schwartzy. I've talked to Ryan O'Reilly. So there's a leadership group, and I think we've always been a team that relied on the masses than any one individual. Alexander Steen, I've had conversations with. He's back in Sweden right now. So Ryan O'Reilly's certainly part of that, but he's in a group of other guys that I rely on to try and gain information to improve our team.
Army, as you hit a wall in the negotiations with Petro, it was reported that it was actually structure that was more an issue than finances. Can you just give us an idea? Were finances an issue there, or what did it come down to?
Well, again, that's why it, and please don't take this the wrong way. I try and not say much about negotiations that are going on, because there's sort of half truths out there that one that we offered him a contract without the structure, the actual, which is true, except it was, if the dollars are ready, we're not going to lose this over structure. So, you know what I mean? So there were certain areas that in our organization we tried to stay away from. Alex was a special player, and that didn't pertain to him.
Doug, you're now over the salary cap, but I guess you're $2 million closer than you would have been with a Petrangelo deal. What's the challenge ahead on making the dollars for the team work out?
Well, right now, and this is a negative, not a positive, but with Tarasenko's injury and Alexander Steen wasn't healthy at the end of the season and really hasn't progressed much since then. So I'm not sure. I think we're going to be able to start. We won't have to do anything regardless of when the season starts to be cap compliant because of these injuries.
Did the other two guys that you talked to, Army, have they signed already, or do you have any interest in those other two?
I don't really want to get into it. I don't want to play my cards too, but they were players. One was a defenseman, one was a forward, it's a time of year that it's an interesting where I know they're talking to other people and they know I'm talking to other people, and it's one of those ones where you try and stay in contact, but you understand that different values, everyone values things differently, whether it's us, the player of St. Louis, and you just keep moving ahead. When you find traction like we found with Torey, you try and keep it going because you can see a potential ending.
Doug, with the defensemen you've got lined up with Perunovich and Mikkola kind of waiting, was there any thought about the need for a forward, especially with Tarasenko's uncertainty?
Yeah, that as I said, we were talking to different players, defensemen and forwards. It wasn't, and I was also comfortable if nothing happened today. It's going to be a long time before we play again. Obviously, you're seeing a very constipated market right now, and teams trying to move players around. So if we didn't do anything today, I was comfortable we would be able to do things if we wanted to moving forward. So forwards were there, but I also do want to. I think there's a real excitement to see what Robert Thomas and Kyrou can do, and if you plug those guys in, I'm not the coach, but if you put your lineup and you have Schwartz and Shen and potentially Robert Thomas, and then you have Sanford and Ryan O'Reilly and Perron, and then you have Blaze, Bosey, Sundquist. We have a lot of players now, and I do want to see what a guy like Kyrou can do given the opportunity. I do want to see if Costin come in here and push his way onto our team. and we do need to get Robert Thomas. You know, he needs to earn that, but I'd love to see him play a more prominent role in our offense.
Hey, Army, sorry to bother you with another Petro question, but some of the discussion has been about maybe a clash over a signing bonus or a no movement clause. Maybe not specific to his situation, but can you explain the Blues' stance on those things? You guys obviously have not done those in deals.
Yeah, I'll start with the no movement clause, and it's just it's just my belief that when you give someone a no movement clause, they basically have more power in your organization than the owner does. I don't really understand the logic of that. I know guys don't want to move around or go on waivers, but just the thought of having a player have more power than the owner, it doesn't make sense to me. But with Alex, you know, there was a no movement clause that we included there, and it was partial. It was for certain years. It was to protect him at the end of his contract, plus signing bonus that we don't do, that we talked to Alex about too. Alex, you know, I treated him differently than we treated anybody else, and it's part of the CBA, and we have to use every tool under the CBA, as does a player. And you know, the only hard, fast rules you have to follow are the ones in the CBA of things you can't do. Others are we don't believe in doing certain things, and it takes a special person to get those things, and Alex was the special person.
Jeremy, I know that you build a player with like 4 or 5 nucleus guys. It's pretty amazing to think that the Stanley Cup championship happened a little over a year ago. And as you start next season, whenever it starts, without Vladdy, you're going to have a pretty different looking nucleus, aren't you?
Yeah, and that's the frustration and the joy of today's NHL with the salary cap. You're always bringing in newer players, elevating younger players, hoping they can get the job done. You have player movement because of the salary cap, but there's turnover and there's change, and every team has to go through it, and you try and keep the nucleus together as long as possible, and but change is inevitable.
All right, everybody good?
Yep. Thank you.
So,
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.